everyone. I'm Stephanie Ketcher, and I'll be presenting an analysis of intercultural communication and the use of humor in the FDNY. The intended purpose of my study was to evaluate the use of humor within the FDNY through an interpretive approach. My assertion is that verbal and nonverbal codes transform the FDNY workplace into a secure cultural space equipped to endure the unique burdens of the job. I used a variety of methods to observe the FDNY, including observing the FDNY on film via YouTube footage and documentaries, as well as my talks with veteran members of the FDNY from a conference in Kansas City. I also referenced additional material on humor from the AATH, or the Association of Applied Therapeutic Humor, all to utilize as a comparative with my personal experience and mainstream views for the study. The three main points we're going to cover today describe how humor in the FDNY varies from societal norms. The general public's expectation of applied humor is to elicit laughter. Humor within the FDNY varies from this norm. Laughter is not exclusive to humor. FDNY members use humor to communicate but not always evoke a response. Humor is utilized as a means to be both direct and preserve harmony through brutal honesty. Lastly, humor also serves to relieve stress. My observations of the FDNY and the cultural communication that exists actually began back in 2011. Following the screening of David Nasser's documentary, You Just Have to Laugh, I spoke with Lieutenant Joe Huber of the FDNY about his experiences as a firefighter in general, as well as in the aftermath of 9/11. He described how humor plays a role in the life of a firefighter. For this project, I added to that a utilization of YouTube to locate additional resources of applied humor within the FDNY, including the documentary Brotherhood, Life in the FDNY from 2004, and news clips featuring FDNY firefighter and stand-up comedian John LaRocha, along with a few other clips spotted from civilians around town. As our book points out, cultures develop communication patterns specific to the group in order to meet the needs of the group or as a product of historical and cultural influences from group members. Group members may or may not be aware of their cultural history or the purpose of their communication patterns. That doesn't mean they don't exist. The predominantly white male Irish Catholic roots of the FDNY are often credited with establishing the cultural norms of the firehouse. The FDNY firehouse communication patterns more often resemble those of a large family than a workplace. The ubiquitous use of humor is not easily understood by outsiders. This cultivates a separate culture for the insiders and further perpetuates the idea of group inclusion versus exclusion. Like a family, brutal honesty is delivered through humor as a means to be both direct and preserve harmony. This is counterintuitive in a workplace bound by HR directives, especially given the harsh nature. Firefighter and comedian John LaRocha claims that no audience could compare to the brutality of the firehouse kitchen. However, if we consider the FDNY to be a unique culture, this method of communication is supported by accepting Min Soon Kim's conversational constraints theory, that cultures hold different values on clarity, minimizing imposition, consideration of others' feelings, risking negative evaluation from the audience, and effectiveness. Humor is an integral part of the FDNY and can be found in various forms throughout the firehouse. Juvenile pranks and jokes are prevalent in both training and day-to-day operations. Humor can even be found during horrific experiences like those experienced by firefighters on and in the aftermath of 9/11. Lieutenant Joe Huber recounted some of those instances in the 2011 documentary You Just Have to Laugh. However, I found that Lieutenant Huber's stories off-camera were far more telling. Lieutenant Huber recounted a horrible accident that happened on the way to a fire. The fire truck rounded the corner and ran over a mother pushing a baby carriage in the crosswalk, killing both. The driver was suspended until charges were cleared, and he was cleared back for duty. It was an accident. When the firefighter returned to work, he opened his locker to find a pair of baby booties hanging there. I'm guessing this horrifies you, and maybe just hearing something like that took your breath away. Lieutenant Huber, though, reiterates that there's nothing anyone could do to erase that accident. It was an elephant in the room that needed to be dealt with. Besides, one of two things is going to happen. Either they'll all laugh about it, or a fist fight will break out, and then they'll laugh about it. Either way the past is dealt with, so that everyone can move on and focus on the responsibility of saving lives without emotional distractions. This example hints at the variety of purposes specific to the FDNY that humor serves. Humor provides a medium for high-context communication. FDNY firefighters explain that the use of humor or harassment is their way of conveying affection or inclusion. Most workplaces discourage harassment. However, this contradiction to mainstream society creates an intimate culture at the firehouse. As I've heard Lieutenant Huber and other firefighters say, if we aren't making fun of you, you don't know we've got your back. Others would describe the purpose of humor as entertainment, while FDNY members seem to embrace it as a stress management tool. The Association of Applied Therapeutic Humor suggests that laughter is not exclusive to humor, but crucial to stress management. It can be used to convey disbelief or to distance a person from the emotion of an event being recalled. For example, in the Brotherhood documentary, a firefighter explains why he's cooking a not-so-great recipe in honor of one of the guys they lost on 9/11. When he talks about the horrific loss, he laughs. This is termed inappropriate laughter by mainstream standards because the nonverbal behavior contradicts the verbal communication or serves the violation of expectation theory. In light of all this, I believe my initial assertion is accurate. Verbal and nonverbal codes transform the FDNY workplace into a secure cultural space equipped to endure the unique burdens of the job, specifically those relating to the use of humor, which enable the transformation of a firehouse from a workplace to a secure cultural space. This is significant because cultural spaces are the social and cultural contexts in which our identity forms, according to the textbook. Perceived cultural differences create anxiety because the norms are unknown, and yet firefighters must come together from a variety of backgrounds and develop a sense of commonality, trust, and definitive communication to ensure they survive. Humor provides a medium to accomplish the cultivation of group identity, the structure of contextual communication norms, and the embodiment of cultural coping mechanisms for stress management. We should take away from this a recognition that humor is not universal. A dialectical perspective reminds us that the particular communication style we use may vary from context to context, according to Martin and Nakayama. We should also evaluate our uses of humor and the cultural boundaries we rely upon to establish the cultural space for our use of humor.